Yeah, giving a talk after the guy who created PHP talked. No pressure at all for me. So I'm making this video after every talk I give, after every conference. I'm trying to make like a little video for my vlog. So now it's the part where you pretend that you know who I am, and you're like, oh my god, he's on stage, and you all go like, yay, just for the vlog. No? Come on, 3, 2. That's what I'm talking about. Oh my god, everybody knows me here in France. Like, this is the first conference I'm attending where I don't know any speakers, I don't know any attendees, so this is pretty fun for me. I'm gonna set this up here just in case. Maybe I'm gonna be funny, I don't know. So I'm gonna put something in my vlog. Before we start with my talk, can I see myself? Yeah. Let me see if this was my clicker. I have 2 clickers here. Clicker number 1, probably not. Clicker number 2, yeah. All right, so before we start with the talk, there are a couple of terms that we're using in the tech industry that I want to address. So I want to get rid of certain words that we're using in ads, online, anywhere you see these words. I want you to stop using them. Number 1 is ninja developer. How do you define this? Have you ever seen a ninja on like a rooftop at midnight doing some PHP or Webpack or CSS? No, ninjas are doing ninja stuff, so they're not coding on a rooftop. Stop calling developers ninja developers. Number 2, clicker, senior developer. How do you define this? Nobody has a definition of it. If you go to Wikipedia, there's no definition of it. So my definition for a senior developer is this guy. So this guy can be a senior developer, or maybe this guy is senior developer. Other than that, let's not use senior developer. And the last one is rockstar developer. I hate this one. Have people actually seen an actual rockstar? This is what they look like. Like, they have hair, they have guitars, they're actually rocking a stage. And this is us, developers. So we're definitely not rock stars. And yeah, at the end of the day, we're all code monkeys trying to make weird libraries work together by writing shitty hacks. I want you to remember this because people who are on this stage, we're not anything special. Like, we prepared a talk, we came here to talk about it, but it's not like we come from, I don't know, from a different background or whatever. So I want to encourage everyone to, whatever you're doing, whatever seems interesting in your day-to-day job or some side project that you're working on, to try and apply for a conference, a meetup, whatever, and try to be on stage, because really, we're just writing shitty hacks and we're talking about them here on stage. So that being said, hi, I'm Kitze. I'm a ninja senior rock. No, I'm kidding. I'm just Kitze. I love making products. I said I love open source before, like a couple of talks before, but the reality is I like open sourcing stuff and not maintaining it later. So I'm ignoring issues, pull requests, and so on. And I love speaking and I love teaching. So this is my workshop. This is everything that I'm working for the past 2 years. I'm only giving workshops. It's called React Academy. The website is reactacademy.io, and I'm doing workshops about React, GraphQL, MobX, React Native, and so on. So if you need a workshop, you can find me here, reactacademy.io. And there's been something I released like 2 years ago, but now we're completely rewriting it and releasing it with tons of new features. We're making like a responsive design browser, which is called Sizzy, so it's sizzy.co. And next week, we're going to launch like a huge, huge update for this. So if you're working with responsive design and you want to develop a website and see it, like, how does it work on 10 devices at once, this is the site that you want to check out. Next week, we're releasing like a big update. So after I'm done with all the promo and all the blah, 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 ninjas and rockstars and so on, we're going to start with the talk, which is called Navigating the Hype-Driven Front-End Development World Without Going Insane. Immediately, as people saw the name of the talk, someone messaged me like in the first 10 seconds when I announced it, and they were like, you cannot use insane. Please change that word. You cannot use insane in a talk. It's somehow offensive. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to change it. It's fine. I changed it to without going crazy. We're like, no, you cannot say insane. You cannot say crazy. Like in 2019, where you... I'm like, okay, I'm going to change it again. But we're also going to change a couple of songs, okay? We're going to call this one Aerosmith Unstable. We're going to call this one Seal Unhinged. And we're going to call this one Beyoncé Unbalanced in Love, okay? So we cannot use those words. They cannot use those words. And I decided I'm going to change it. Navigating the world without going nuts. And there's probably going to be someone at the back of the audience who's going to be like, my second cousin is allergic to nuts, so you cannot use nuts in a talk. All right, fuck it. I give up. So this is just called Navigating the Hype-Driven Front-End Development World, period. This is your vision of yourself after the conference. Well, not really with the rain, but you think that you're going to enjoy, you're going to grab a beer or something, you're going to chill. the reality of you after the conference is going to be something like this. Not because it's sunny, not because you're going to be sweating from the sun, but you've heard all of these amazing talks so far, and you're going to hear a couple more talks until the end of the day and tomorrow. And all of these talks are talking about something that you are not doing in your company, right? So on Monday, you go to work and you're like, guys, we have to refactor everything. Like they told us so many different ways, frameworks, libraries, techniques, we have to refactor everything. So we get this sense of like the fear of missing out is just building up for these 2 days. So I'm here to try to kill that FOMO. So this is me, because I'm not watching most of the talks, I'm just going around with my camera, and I'm going to leave tomorrow early, so I don't have FOMO. Mostly, I'm not watching the talks because I'm like, I'm fine. Whatever I'm using right now as a tech stack is fine. I don't need to listen to all of these nice things that other people are using. What is FOMO? The fear of missing out. This is the classic Wikipedia definition, the boring one. It says, FOMO is a pervasive apprehension that others might be having rewarding experiences from which one is absent. Social anxiety is characterized as blah, 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 blah. This is the definition of FOMO. Everyone has a different version. By the way, this is super cool. This is the first time I'm giving a talk while it rains outside, so that's pretty dope. Everyone has a different version of FOMO, and everyone has a different like FOMO keyword. This is mine. So I have the FOMO room. And the definition of this for me is fear of mofos on Twitter tweeting dev stuff that you cannot find elsewhere. So who is not on Twitter? God bless you. Like, trust me. If you're a developer who's not on Twitter, you're living a peaceful life. Right now, as I'm giving this talk, I'm just thinking, oh my God, for 30 minutes, I'm going to miss someone is tweeting about a library, someone is tweeting some hack about a framework, and so on. So all the time, if you're using Twitter, you're used to like fast information every day. So usually when you visit a conference and you tell them about something new that happened, and you're panicked, like, oh my God, have you jumped to like Webpack 7? And they're like, what? Webpack? What is Webpack? So if you're happy with your stack, just please don't use a Twitter account. I have this way of FOMO. Everyone has a different way of FOMO. So we're going to address why do we have FOMO? Why do we have this fear of missing out as developers? Clicker. Oh, yeah. We doubt ourselves. We doubt the code that we write. We focus on the wrong things, we obsess with the wrong metrics, and we have a lot of free time. If you have a PlayStation in your company, you have a lot of free time, okay? And we love to procrastinate. So developers love to procrastinate, whether negative procrastination or positive procrastinations. We just love this. So we're going to address all of them one by one or two by two, and we're going to start with focusing on the wrong things and obsessing with the wrong metrics. So when I started learning GraphQL, I had a beer with a friend, so pretty casual conversation. We weren't at a conference, we were just outside at a cafe, and we were talking about GraphQL. And he was like, in my company, like for the past month, we've been working on this crazy GraphQL backend, which is like 7 layers. So we have this caching layer, and we have like this layer that distributes all over the world. So we're doing this, we're doing that, we're eliminating all the delays. So we have like a delay of I don't know how many micro-milliseconds. He's just babbling about this super fast backend that they're writing. So I just dozed off after the 5th word, and I'm like, yeah. Tell me more about your GraphQL backend. Yeah, cool. I'm like, what are you building? Are you building the new Facebook? Are you building Pinterest? Why do you need something that's fast? Why do you put so much time in this? And he said they're building a landing page for a hospital, a landing page. So I'm like, there's not going to be a scenario where the nurse is going to be like, doctor, we're losing the patient because our landing page isn't fast enough. That's never going to happen. So why do you put so much time in a freaking landing page? That was the wrong click, I guess. Yeah. So raise your hand if this is you. I made something, it works and I think it's awesome, but I'm not sure if it's right. Everyone's going to raise their hand except the lazy ones, because trust me, everyone in this room feels like this. Every time you write some code, you want to look around you to your colleagues on Twitter or someone and be like, do they approve of my code? Is this code good enough? So all the time we have this doubt that whatever we wrote is not good enough. Can someone turn down the volume of the rain? Thank you. So what is right and who is right? There's nobody who is right in any programming community. JavaScript, React, we always have these like rockstar developers and we think they are right. But no one is right. Just everyone has their own way of doing things, but no one is 100% right with what they're doing. If you're in the React community, my emoji are gone probably, but that's fine. I don't use a lot of emoji. if you're in the React community, you may see this kind of articles. Render props suck, so we have this on one side, and on the other side we have hooks are everything. We cannot find the middle ground. We cannot find like a healthy mix. It's either the one thing or the other thing. We cannot find the middle between these two things. Or we had like a couple of years ago, we need Redux for everything, and then on the other side, we have a Medium article, Redux is dead. That's it. We declared it dead. So yeah, this is Redux just beating a dead horse all the time. Now it's dead again. With hooks and context, we can completely replace Redux, so it's dead again, right? So just, it's already dead. And again, we're just killing Redux every few months with different sets of libraries. So it's already dead, just stop it. But everyone knows this person who's like, have you tried Redux Helicopter 7.9? It's just the best library ever. My team is using it. It's just, you have to try Redux Helicopter 7.9. It's freaking amazing. And you're like, I don't know what even, yeah, okay, whatever. But if you know me, which you probably don't, you might think that this is ironic because I'm the person who's doing this to other people on Twitter. So these are some of my tweets. So even before something was released, I would tweet something like this. The CoffeeScript plugin for Babel 7 used in combination with blah, blah, blah rocks so hard it changed my life. I mentioned CoffeeScript, which is freaking dead. And there are 4 mentions here going like, oh my God, really? Really? CoffeeScript is back? Should we migrate to CoffeeScript? No, it's freaking CoffeeScript. Like, get over it. So I'm the one, sometimes I'm doing this as a joke, but people have FOMO, even from these jokes. They're like, holy shit, I'm missing on this amazing tech stack that everyone else is on. So before you follow someone else's advice, whether it's here on stage, whether it's online, on Twitter, on Facebook, on whatever, make sure that you know their background and make sure that you know their context. So before you trust me with anything I'm going to say during this talk, you have to know about me and you have to know about my context. So I'm going to have a slide about me. I work alone, that's number 1. I don't work for clients, so I'm just doing the workshop thing. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, to be honest. And I have all the free time in the world to experiment. So because I'm doing workshops, I have like 20 days per month to experiment with every library and so on. And last but not least, I'm going to make a Christmas tree out of this slide. So why would you trust a guy that does that on stage? I don't know. So you have to know my background before you trust me on anything. And yet, with all of this being said, I don't blindly jump on the latest bleeding edge tech all the time. I have all the free time. I don't have a team. I don't have a manager telling me what library can I try and so on. And yet, I don't blindly jump on everything that's going on in the front-end world. How do we get to FOMO, NOMO? How do we get to this point of not jumping to the latest and greatest? We have to recognize the breaking points when we're moving from one thing to the next thing. And these are some questions that we can ask ourselves before jumping from the one thing to the next thing. How easy is the transition? Is now the right time? It's never the right time, trust me. And do I really need it? So do I really need this transition right now? So let's start one by one with my transitions. When I moved from floats to Flexbox, like I saw that it's not a simple syntax. And even right now, I don't remember the Flexbox syntax completely. But when I saw Flexbox and I realized I can center things this way without like doing a lot of shitty hacks with floats, I was like, this is not going to be an easy transition, but I'm 100%, it is the right time, I need it right now. So this was the right time and I really needed it. It wasn't easy. Angular and React. I'm doing React workshops for the past 2-3 years. I've been working with React for 3-4 years, I think. But I knew about React for a year and a half before jumping on React. My colleagues were like buzzing around me, oh my God, React, oh my God, React. Oh my. Probably you're tired of the word React, right? So I felt like they're pressuring me into jumping to some technology, and we were perfectly happy with Angular back at the time because we were like, okay, I see that your thing is cool, but right now we're in the middle of the project and Angular is doing the work for us, so we don't need to do the switch. But eventually, when they made a transition from Angular 1 to 2 and I saw TypeScript, I was like, nah, fuck that. So I'm not learning TypeScript just for Angular, and then we wanted to explore something else, so we jumped to React. But we didn't make it, because it wasn't an easy transition, we didn't make it right away. Then we have REST to GraphQL. So I didn't even know about GraphQL, and I had all of these problems with REST, which I was hoping that some technology will come along and it's going to solve all of them. So whenever I was using REST, or like REST with Firebase or whatever, I always combine like 5 different API calls to get like a certain piece of data that I want. So if I want to get the users and I want to get the users blog post, and for every blog post I want to get the comments, I would have to fire like 3 requests and then combine them on the client. And every time I did that, I'm like, how do I approach these 3 different requests? Do I get, or maybe should I switch them to 1 on my backend and just have 1 request for the 3 things that I want to fetch? So it was never like clear and straightforward, how do I fetch and combine my data? So I was hoping that a solution will come along. And when I saw GraphQL, I'm like, holy shit, this is the solution that I needed all along. Now it's not the right time, but whenever the backend developers said, we're going to refactor our backend from scratch, I was like, we have to learn GraphQL because it's going to help both the backend and the front end. It's going to solve a lot of our problems. So it's not an easy transition. There is a path that you can take for migrating from REST to GraphQL, but I think I have another talk called State Management in a GraphQL Era. So GraphQL is not only about changing how the backend works. So GraphQL is massively changing how the client works and is simplifying everything regarding like state management, data caching, cache invalidating, and so on. So this was the right transition, and I never regret that we switched from REST to GraphQL. And then we have the next one. Oh God. So I started with just like vanilla CSS. Then I moved on, I adopted Sass. Then I adopted BAM. Then I realized I'm becoming Angelina Jolie of these CSS adoptions with Sass and BAM and managing everything. So we were just babysitting CSS. So CSS was made for one thing, we started using it for another thing, and in order to make it scalable and in order to make everything simpler, we had to use like BAM and Sass and so on. I'm like, there must be something that's gonna solve our problems when we're writing an app and we wanna style that app. And the solution was CSS in JS, but the transitions were pretty wild. So I went from Sass and BAM to Aphrodite from Khan Academy, which was the first popular CSS in JS library. Then I saw styled components, which is you're writing your styles as styled components. When I saw that, I'm like, fuck off, nobody's gonna write code like this. This is the ugliest way of styling ever. And then like I tried a demo and I'm like, holy shit, this is the future. So now I think styled components is the most popular CSS in JS library, and there's like huge big companies who are using styled components. So if I ever have to choose a technology, I would choose this one because it's like the most supported and most popular one. But I went to Glamorous like last year I think, because Glamorous supported objects and styled components supported only strings. And I was like, okay, this is everything that I need. I don't need to switch to anything else until the guy who wrote Glamorous said, I'm deprecating this, so there's an easy switch, just switch to Emotion, and everything is gonna keep working the same. I'm like, fuck, this is the last one, I swear, I'm never gonna switch a library again. So I was sticking with Emotion for a while, until in one of my repos, Max, who is the creator of Style Components, he just opens a PR, and he switches me back from Emotion to Style Components, just to prove that it's the same API. So nowadays, if you're using Emotion or if you're using styled components, it really doesn't matter. It's the same API. I just stuck to like styled components because it's the most popular one. And I merged his pull request because I felt sorry. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use your library. So that was the CSS ride. And what I'm saying is you need to sleep on all of these decisions. There was a guy, like in real life, there was a news story about a shopping addict. So he was just make all of these impulse decisions for buying stuff, and he wanted to cure himself. So he read somewhere that he can do this trick where he freezes his credit card, but he froze his credit card like literally. He went and he would just like put his credit card in a freezer, and then when he wanted to buy something, he would have to go home, unfreeze the credit card, come back the next day and buy the thing. And as you can imagine, it's too much of a hassle, and he stopped like this impulse shopping, and he was really thinking all of his decisions through. He was sleeping on the decisions, and he stopped being a shopping addict. So what we need to do as developers, and we need to sleep on our decisions. So we need to have the freezing card version, the dev version of this story, like freezing the credit card. So sleep on some decision. When you read a Medium article about, oh my God, style components is amazing, just before you go npm install style components, we need to refactor everything. You call your team, your manager, we're refactoring everything to style components. Just sleep on the decision and see if it's the right fit for you. Ask yourself the 3 questions and then decide if you should move on to it or not. What I'm not saying is you shouldn't get like too comfortable. So you shouldn't be like, okay, we know these 2 frameworks. I know this front-end framework, back-end framework. I'm not going to move on to anything else because this does the job for me. So you should learn about new things. You should be curious. I don't know, read Twitter, Reddit, Medium, whatever. But keep all of these things like in the back of your mind. So when you read something about GraphQL, be like, okay, I know that GraphQL exists. If we ever have a use case for GraphQL, we're going to switch from GraphQL. So it's good to know that something exists, but it's bad to do a deep dive on something that you might need in the future. And every developer is doing this. You read an article on SVG, and it's a deep dive on SVG, so you spend like 2 hours reading everything about SVG, and you're like, I don't know, one day maybe I'm gonna need SVG for something. And then 3 months later, you've forgotten everything about SVG, and you have to Google how to draw a circle with SVG. So don't fill your brain with this just in case stuff, but know about how technology is like advancing, what are some new frameworks, libraries, and so on. Don't jump on them immediately. Less abstractions. I think this is the biggest life hack that we just refuse to use as developers. So I have some scientific brain scans here, and I have one photoshopped brain scan. So this is the first one that's real. This is our brain on cocaine. This is our brain on sugar, so it's even worse. You can see the green areas are lighting up on sugar more than cocaine. But this is a developer's brain, this is the Photoshop one, when they see the opportunity for an abstraction in some code. You're like, holy shit, I feel like a hacker right now. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna put it in a function. I'm gonna take this style, I'm gonna put it in a CSS class because I'm smart, right? All the time, you're like, when you see an abstraction, you feel so super smart if you do that abstraction. And this is where we create all of our problems, just by abstracting away the wrong things. And abstraction doesn't mean just putting something in a function. An abstraction might mean when you see some of your code and you see a library that does the same thing, you're like, I'm gonna delete my code, I'm gonna go with the library. Or I'm gonna take my code and extract it in a class, and then I'm gonna extend this class, and then after you use it for 3 times, you're like, fuck. This wasn't an abstraction. I have to revert everything back just to go to back to where I started. So all the time we're falling into this trap. When you see like 2 similar pieces of code, that's an abstraction. But I have the solution for you, and it's like really simple. And you hate it. If it wasn't raining, trust me, like 50% would go out, be like, no, I don't want to listen to this guy. He told me to copy-paste code, and I'm smart. I've studied computer science not to paste, not to copy and paste code, right? But trust me, this is the best thing ever. If you train your brain not to be nervous when you're copy-pasting code that looks literally the same, and you're going to leave it there for 3 days, it sounds like, oh my God, no. Leave it there for 3 days, use it for 5 times, 10 times, and when you're certain that this code is an abstraction, then you might abstract it in a function, in a class, or whatever. But most of the time, without copy-paste, doing the abstraction is going to be the wrong thing. So I told you what not to focus on, what not to spend your time on, and I'm going to tell you what can you focus on instead. I'm going to give you some ideas. Do you remember this, guys? Do you remember this gang? This is why we write our apps, but we're kind of forgetting this in our day-to-day work. We're like, oh, fuck the users, I just want to have fun, right? So we need to focus on the users. We need to focus like our end product is going to reach the users. It's not just entertainment for us. But we love to entertain ourselves during work by doing positive procrastination. What is positive procrastination? When you have a task that you need to implement a login form, you can finish the login form in 5 minutes using like vanilla JavaScript or jQuery or whatever. But you're like, no, I'm smart. I'm going to use a form library. I'm going to use Redux, and I'm going to use Redux form, and maybe Redux observables. And I'm going to spend 8 hours on combining these 4 libraries just to make a freaking login form. And you're going to be entertained. You're going to feel smart. You're going to feel some sense of accomplishment. You're going to go home, tell your husband, your wife, whatever. You're going to be like, honey, it was an amazing day at work. I spent like 8 hours. It was so amazing. I'm so smart. Fist bump. And then the user just goes to use your app, and he's like, this freaking thing is so slow. I cannot even log in. So for the end user, it doesn't matter. If you write it in whatever language, whatever framework, whatever you do, the end user will just use the app. So it's just this positive procrastination for yourself. So we should stop doing this. What else can you focus on? So if you don't want to focus on the users, if you're like, oh, fuck the users, I'm working for a company, so this company is making a lot of money on the users. Yeah, there are a lot of examples where the developer doesn't even care about the end users because it's not my app, I'm just working for this company. Okay, I can give you another suggestion. But before I give you the suggestion, let's see what the developers want to talk about, what us developers want to talk about. First, editor theme. You cannot post a code snippet on Twitter without all the people asking you, what theme is that? Then we have fonts. What font is that? It doesn't matter. I just solved something important and I post on Twitter. You ask me, what font is that? Then we have folder architecture. Oh my God, am I tired of this one? How do you organize your components? Do you put them? Yeah, we put them in like another folder and then we split them. No, who cares? Just put them in one folder, call it components, and just be done with the discussion. It's such a stupid topic. Tweets. We're discussing like controversial tweets, tabs versus spaces. This is never going to die. semicolons. Just use them, okay? Most of the languages use them. Use them. Don't be a hipster. That's the end of it. Webpack is hard. We know it. It's hard. Use some abstraction over Webpack. Move on. Framework wars. Tired of them. The versioning of Angular. It's so funny, right? They went from 1 to 2 to 7. And then React goes from 0.16 to 16, and everyone's like, yeah, that's how numbers work. It's only funny because of Angular. All right. And then we have jokes about exiting Vim. Just quit them. Get it? Quit. Okay. Do I have one last one? Yeah, jokes about the cloud. Did you know that the cloud is somebody else's computer? Yeah, we know. Shut up. So that's what we want to talk about, and here's what we don't want to talk about. It's about to get really uncomfortable in here, because I'm going to mention the M word. Ooh, we hate the M word as developers. Money. Nobody wants to talk about money. Trust me, if it wasn't raining, you would hear like people going outside. Developers would talk literally about anything on that list, but we don't want to talk about money in any scenario. So this was not so long ago at a conference. They asked me, I was doing a workshop for like 8 hours, and they asked the people who gave a workshop, they asked us, after the workshop, can you run to this other hotel? We're going to have some discussion panels. You can pick a topic, and with the group of people that wants to discuss the topic, you're going to like lead the discussion or whatever. So everyone picked a topic. I picked freelancing because I was freelancing for a while, and I was excited. So they said, after you finish the workshop, please don't take a lot of time, but just run to the other hotel. There's not enough time. So I'm just finishing my workshop, closing the laptop, and I'm running. It was summer. I'm sweaty. I'm entering the room, and I open the door, and I see all the tables. I'm trying to find my table, freelancing, and this is the picture that I took from my table. So this was the freelancing table. All the other tables, any framework, language, whatever you have, everything was full. This was just freelancing. Me, myself, and I. But what if I tell you that VS Code, material, pale, purple, this theme won't pay your rent, okay? I know it's fun to experiment with themes and editor settings all day, but it's not going to pay your rent. The sad thing, it's never been easier to make money as a developer. Like, we live in literally the easiest time. Like, right now, in 1 hour, you can launch a startup, which is crazy. Not so long ago, in order for you to launch even a simple landing page, you had to know a person who knows a person who knows a person who knows a person who is the person in the city for doing landing pages. And he would charge you $5,000 for a freaking landing page. No animations, ugly as hell. But he was the person to do it. That's it. Nowadays, there's so many tools. There's like cloud, I don't know, GraphQL as a service, REST as a service. You can throw in a database, a backend, a frontend, whatever, in like an hour, and you can literally launch a startup. So it's like pretty easy to launch something nowadays. But things are going to change. Do you know why this surgeon is sad? Why is he reading? What does it say on this paper? Your first guess is like, he's probably sad because his patient died or something complicated, or I don't know, they fired him or something, that's why he's sad. But he's not sad because of that. Here's what it says on that paper. You studied for 15 years, but somewhere out there's a nerdy teen who learned Vue.js in 2 months on Udemy and made Tinder for cats that's going to make more money than you're ever going to make as a surgeon. He's reading there and he's like, fuck, what can I do? That was my career. I decided to be a surgeon. So it's sad that we have these surgeons, doctors, lawyers, these people who spend like 15 years on education, and they're just going to hit a ceiling, and that's the salary they're going to make for the rest of their lives until they're replaced by a surgeon robot or something. That's it. They have to deal with it. But us, like developers, we don't have like a limit. There's not a limit that you can hit as a developer. You can invent something as stupid as Tinder for cats. I'm planning on building like Tinder for dogs. Seriously. It's so hard to find like a mate for your dog. One day, this joke of a slide is going to become my sad reality. But it's possible to release something really stupid and to make a lot of money from it. It wasn't as easy back in the day. You had to form a team. You had to have a back-end person, front-end person, designer, and so on. Now it's like super easy. But there are wrong ways to do it, and there are right ways to do it. We're going to start with the wrong ways to do it. This is a quote from my ex-colleague. He said, I'm going to read a book and learn about this new framework, and the boss is going to acknowledge. This is super serious. I'm not joking. He said this. He's going to read a book, and the boss is going to be like, here's 2,000 euros more for your salary, because now you know Angular 6.4. This is not going to happen. Or if you feel like super smart, you're bored at work, you upgrade random frameworks. You're like, I'm going to upgrade this, I'm going to learn that, and so on. Someone's going to acknowledge this. Nope, nothing's going to happen. technical skills, like I think this is wrong that I'm saying it have nothing to do with the amount of money that you're making, but this is really true in a lot of companies. You might know, we had a guy in our company who was like super senior, ninja, rock star, knowing all the frameworks, math, AI, machine learning, whatever, and there are people who made more money than him with knowing just a front-end framework. So it's not about putting all of your efforts into investing into this like technical skills and someone's gonna acknowledge that, fist bump, here's a bigger salary. That's not how it works. I love this example about Nomad List. Have you heard about nomadlist.com? All right, couple of people, that's great. So the guy who made Nomad List is called Peter Levels. He's a pretty impressive guy. Back in the day, like he and his brother decided to do something, to like learn programming and do something. So Peter was like focused. He was like, I want to build a product for users to find like trips and hotels and this and that. So I'm going to learn the minimum that I need in order to like build this thing that I have in mind. And he started with an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets or whatever, and then he moved on to like PHP and jQuery. He was like, everyone is using this, so I'm going to use PHP and jQuery to build my startup. And his brother was like, I want to go more advanced, so I'm going to learn something like Meteor.js. And then a couple of months later, like Peter was struggling. He didn't have a CS background. He was just trying with Excel, with PHP, with jQuery, and he ended up with Nomad List. And a couple of months later, his brother knew Meteor.js, which is now completely irrelevant. Nobody's using Meteor.js, and his brother like lost maybe a year learning something that's not relevant right now, while Peter's Nomad List, I think he's making around $80,000 per month from Nomad List and one other startup as a solo developer, which is pretty crazy. Every time he posts some of his code online, like his Hacker News comments are pure entertainment. Just go to Hacker News and search for Nomad List. If he has some code, they're like, oh my god, this is so ugly. He's not even using a framework. He's not even using a front-end library like React or Angular. How dare he? He is using jQuery and so on. And he's like, sorry, I cannot hear you from this $80,000 that I'm making per month. So it's pretty impressive. Like he has nomadlist.com/transparency or /open or something, where you can see the money that he makes like directly from the Stripe API. And honestly, sometimes I cry when I see that page. Yeah, you're like, I know all of these things, and he learned just 2 things, but he focused on the users and the problem he was trying to solve. That's why he won. It's not going to be that easy in the upcoming years. So all of these changes, all of these transitions are happening and were happening in the past, but we kind of want to ignore everything that's happening, right? So I'm going to give you an example of something that happened. This was a real job back in the day. It was called a factory lector, and he was reading the newspaper to people who worked in the factory. So they were bored, and they were just doing a really monotonous job, and they had someone, they didn't have TV or radio or anything, so this guy was just entertaining people by reading the newspaper all day. He was happy, he was going home to his wife, they had a stable salary and so on, but this guy didn't have Hacker News. He didn't have Reddit, he didn't have Twitter, he didn't have Medium to read that, hey, your job is gonna be replaced one day. He didn't have a clue of what was going on. And one day, the manager of the factory or whatever just came in and he said, buddy, go home, and placed a radio instead of him. And people didn't care. They were like, oh, the radio is much better than that guy. I got bored of him. So he lost his job because he couldn't predict that the radio or whatever, the revolution is going to happen. But we, as developers, we're reading this all the time. AI, machine learning, automation, AI, machine learning, automation, but we're like, la, 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 I don't want to listen. No, I'm going to have a job forever. I'm special. I'm going to move divs and spans and images for all of my life, and I'm going to make a lot of money. No one's going to replace me. I'm special. That's how we act, and it's pretty amusing. I'm going to give you some examples of what AI is doing right now, not in the future, right now. NVIDIA released this thing, if you remember Microsoft Paint, but when you draw something, you can pick if it's a sky, tree, cloud, whatever, and the AI generates like a pretty realistic image out of your shitty doodle. So AI can do this right now. What makes you think it cannot generate a website out of this thing? Because we're special, right? Then next example, you probably all know it. There's self-driving cars right now, not in the future. Right now, there are autonomous vehicles driving on the streets. It can like detect pedestrians, ducks, collisions, all sorts of stuff. But they're never going to replace us with our CSS and divs and spans, right? We are special. And then I have the last example, and the best example of what AI can achieve that none of you here can do is AI can detect the difference between this dog and a muffin, this dog and a bagel, and that dog and a mop. See the people in the back squinting like, is that a mop? Is that a muffin? So AI can do that from any distance. We cannot do this. So yeah, we're going to get replaced. Trust me. And if you're like, give me some IT example of what AI can do, don't give me these bagels and muffins and stuff. I'm going to give you an example. So there's this startup that's doing this. You can draw like a mock-up of what you want to build, and it's going to go through like machine learning AI, whatever thing is doing in the background. And I think this is from Microsoft, I'm not sure. And then it's going to generate a website or an app for you. At least the skeleton for the app can be generated. So I think it was a Microsoft thing. So they're going to add Clippy to this thing, and you're out of a job. So Clippy is going to help you do this website. But in all seriousness, not with Clippy, but I can see this being a scenario in the foreseeable future where instead of your manager telling your other manager to tell you and your team what to do, your manager is just going to be on an airplane or in his office. He's going to have an idea of what he wants to build, and he's going to say something like this: Alexa, suggest me a couple of responsive menu styles for that header. She's going to go to the 30,000 website, and they're going to build the websites together just by voice interaction. Then he's going to be like, Alexa, move that 3 pixels to the right. It's going to be like, Alexa, move that 5 pixels to the left. And unlike the designers on your team, Alexa is not going to bitch about moving pixels, and it's going to be like, yeah, sure, moving 4 pixels to the right. So yeah, this is the future. You have to think about this future and quickly adapt. Unless, there's always this unless scenario. So we're either going to adapt for the future, or you can fix printers. If you can fix printers, you're going to have a job forever. You're never going to be replaced, trust me. So you can have this, or you can work on legacy systems. This is, yeah, we're building a lot of things. They're going to become legacy, so you can work on legacy systems. And I'm being completely serious. So examples of legacy systems like Pascal or COBOL or Angular 1, you may choose to have a career in one of these three. And the second one is actually my favorite. So there's this company a friend sent me a link to. They're called COBOL Cowboys, professionals for legacy COBOL systems. And their tagline is not our first rodeo. You know why? Because they're in business for like 200 years. That's why. And I've never been more tempted. I was like, when I'm going to click that meet the company button, I'm going to see the oldest developers on earth. And when you click it, this is what you get. These are the people from... These people are amazing. You're laughing, but they're making shit ton of money. This is the junior developer who's joining soon. And if you think like you and your company are getting a lot of perks, like, oh, we have a PlayStation and we have a freshly squeezed juice, whatever, these guys are getting their blood replaced every week. Because if they lose John on the backend team, the company is done. So these are the best developers on earth right now. But the third example, I was also serious about it, Angular 1. Like, it's not up-to-date code. Angular 1 was released when? 2015, 16 maybe? I don't know. I have a friend who was focused on Angular 1, and when everyone made the transition to React instead of Angular 2, not everyone, when people made this transition, I asked him, I'm like, you know, like you're a pretty smart dude, you know this is the right move, why don't you do it? And he's like, I'm going to focus everything I have on Asia, because Angular 1, they like double down on Angular in Asia, and they've built all sorts of crazy systems. So I'm going to do like courses, tutorials, trainings, consultancy, everything for them, and I'm going to make shit ton of money just by continuing to learn to like make materials and tutorials and so on for Angular 1 in Asia. And I'm like, yeah, sure, like that's going to bring you money. And then later he posted like a couple of pictures on his Instagram, Twitter from sports cars, and I know Redux, and this is what I travel with. But I'm smart, right? So to summarize with couple, I think there are last 2 slides. Find your niche, stick to it. And there's more and more people in every dev community. They are finding their niche, they're sticking to it, but they're missing step 3. So you know, like the girl who's an expert in TypeScript, you know the guy who's an expert in Redux and whatever, and he's the expert, but he's missing so little in order to monetize this. If he's an expert on testing or whatever, like it's really easy to launch a course, to launch a tutorial, to launch your own workshop. Example here, like it's not that hard. Just be passionate about the thing that you're already passionate about and try to make it profitable for you. I think everyone can do this regardless if you're working for a company, if you're freelancing, and so on. So to summarize everything that I've said in this talk, I have this slide. Stop seeking external approval, that's number 1. Stop seeking answers in other people's projects. Stop feeling insecure about your code because nobody actually knows what they're doing. Less abstractions, more copy-paste, a hard one. Recognizing breaking points before moving from A to B. FOMO is just a side effect of the wrong priorities. If you ever feel FOMO, that you're missing out or some other libraries and so on, you're not focused enough on your users, your money, and so on. So focus on the users or your money, focus on things that matter, and you'll be just fine without Redux Helicopter 7.4, trust me. Merci beaucoup for listening. You can find me on this social media links, and that's my website. So thank you very much.